The meeting door. Excellent. Barb, would you lead us, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Forrester, are there any additions to the agenda?
There are none tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
All right. Down to the consent agenda. If everybody's had a chance to read the consent agenda, I'm open to a motion to approve it.
I move to approve the agenda, or the consent agenda circulated.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passed unanimously. And we do have, Counselor Brummer is not here tonight, if you haven't noted. But he's out this week. So. All right, we are down to visitors' appearances and requests. We have 2 spots to talk for the public to speak in the council meetings, one now and one at the end of the meeting. So would anybody from the audience like to speak to us right now? If you would, please come up and to the podium and announce yourself. And is there anybody on Zoom? All right. Move on to council presentations. So item number 2, Republic disposal, update to council. So you guys are up.
How's everybody doing? So, my name is John Halen. I'm the municipal manager for Republic Services here in Prineville. I'm here with my general manager, Erica. And we thought we'd give you guys kind of a heads up on some of the things we're working on in Prineville, specifically a recycling contamination reduction program. So, what is OTR? It's a 1983 act that mandates that cities with populations over 4,000 provide monthly curbside recycling, and all permitted disposal sites must offer recycling depots. It establishes a materials management hierarchy focusing on reduction, reuse, and recycling, which was further strengthened by the 1991 Recycling Act and 2015 amendments. Key components are cities over 4,000 must provide at least monthly en route collection of source-separated recyclable materials. Permitted disposal sites must provide recycling opportunities. It ensures residents have access to recycled materials from a designated uniform statewide list. Amendments require local governments to implement waste prevention and reuse programs such as education on reducing food waste. And it requires state agencies to purchase recycled materials to support market development. And then in 2025, there was an amendment, there was an update introducing producer responsibility to fund, manage, and expand access to recycling services across the state. And so what that means is the producer responsibility means that their fees from the people who produce a lot of the things that go into recycling fund this program. So all the notifications we send out, any of the cart tagging we're going to be doing. And what I mean by cart tagging is we're going to be looking for contamination in recycling. And this is required by the state and paid for by the state. So when our drivers are going to be driving down the street and they come upon a recycling cart and they see, for instance, a wood 2x4 sticking out of their recycling cart, that would be contamination because that's not recycling. No one is going to be going through the recycling at all. It's just going to be the driver shows up, they're going to look at the cart, and if they see styrofoam sticking out the top of it, then they're going to tag the cart and they're going to say exactly what it was and give the person an opportunity to rectify the contamination in their cart. If you get 4 egregious violations, they call it egregious. I mean, it has to be egregious. It can't just be a dirty peanut butter cup, for instance. It has to be quite a lot of contamination. After 4 notices in a 6-month period, if approved, we can then fine the customer for the contamination. But we will be messaging the customer after every cart tagging, both through email, phone calls, about the contamination and give them an opportunity to correct that contamination. And this is what a cart tag is going to look like. So in it, it's going to have a checklist of all the different things that we might have seen in the cart. No hazardous waste is allowed, no trash is allowed, no plastic bags. Some people will put their recycling in plastic bags and throw it in the recycling cart. That's not supposed to happen. Our recycling team does not open up any bags because you don't know what's going to be in there. And so a customer, the reason we wanted to come here and present is because you guys might get contacted by customers that might be surprised to see a cart tag on their cart one day. And we just kind of wanted to give you a heads up and also give the community a heads up that this program was happening. So people will get a cart tag on their cart. They'll get an email or a phone call and a warning letter saying, hey, we noticed contamination. This was the type of contamination. Please correct this. And it's important to know that this isn't just about recycling more and saving the environment. It's also about extending the life of our landfills. So all the waste that we can divert to recycling increases the lifespan of our local landfills, which, as we all know, are really difficult to build. And so one thing contamination can do is if, for instance, we have an entire truckload full of recycling and there is too much food waste in there, we're not going to go through there and pick out half sandwiches and stuff. That's unfortunately going to go straight into the landfill. And so recycling contamination right now is anywhere from 12% to 16% of the recycling in total. And the state is trying to get that down below 12%. So, does anyone have any questions?
I just have one question.
Yeah.
I got one of those tags once.
Yeah.
It was from glass. Do you
Yeah.
guys, is there any kind of glass recycling program now?
So,
Sorry.
yeah.
Sorry. So glass has to be source separated. So glass can be recycled. It can't go into your commingled recycled container. We have a glass depot at our Prineville yard, so you can take any glass material to that location.
Okay. Got it. Thank you.
Welcome.
You're missing a peanut butter jar.
Yeah.
Peanut butter left in that jar that you throw.
I mean, ideally it'll be clean, but we're not telling people it can be clean. Department of, DEQ has certain requirements and they've actually scrubbed clean language off of it because they don't want to overwhelm everybody with the idea that they have to scrub everything. But ideally the recycling that you're going to be putting in there is going to be relatively clean.
What about paper?
Paper can go in there. Yes.
Those kind of paper.
Yep.
Is there a way you prefer it to be put into the carts?
In your commingled container, it has to be that type. If it's shredded, it needs to come out of the commingled container. Shredded has to be source separated, so go into a different container. There's through the DEQ RMA program, they rolled out what we call pro depots or recycle on recycle depots. There's actually one located at Crook County Landfill that can take shredded material. So we prefer it like you had it whole. If it's shredded, it needs to go in another type of container.
So if I had a bunch of paper like that, and the reason I'm asking, because I do have a bunch of paper like this at my house, can I put it in a paper bag and put it in there so it doesn't blow or go anywhere wherever,
Yeah.
wherever it goes?
Yeah, you can put it in a paper bag, just not a plastic bag.
Not a plastic
Yes.
bag, but okay.
And plastic bags can be recycled, but again, it's on that Pro Depot location located at Crook County Landfill. Plastic bags can be taken there.
I have one other question.
Okay.
Yep.
I think it was and it might have been 2025, the state was talking about, and I can't remember what it stands for, but a MRF had to be on this side of the Cascades, I think. So is there still, in a MRF, I know it was a recycling station or some type of bigger
Yeah.
recycling?
Yeah, those are processing plans. So through the DEQ RMA program, they are looking to extend processing plants. There isn't one that's currently sited in our area, Central Oregon. We have to take all the material to the Portland areas. We take our material to Salem. But eventually in several years or several program elements, they're likely going to expand, but that's going to be something that's going to be handled through the state and through the PRO, which is called Circular Action Alliance. They're going to help support that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I had one last.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. The milk cartons, we know that's all. What about the packaging that we love to hate, that people try to get into? They'll use anything to get into it. And then they know, do I throw that in my garbage? Do I throw that in my recycle?
So if it's plastic film, if that's what you're referring to,
Bill, they put on. lots
Like
of-
blister packs? Yeah.
I guess you'd call that, you gotta use snippers to get into a lot of those products.
oh, those do have to go into your trash container. That would be considered contamination. So those can't be recycled into the commingled stream currently. Yeah, so those would be trash.
What about gift wrapping paper or gift bags that have designs on them and that? Is that, or colored paper? Is that need to go in the trash and not in the recycle?
Those specific, so gift wrap, that type of film, that can go to the Pro Depot. Bags, it just depends. Some of those can be recycled if they're paper based, but I think some of those, what you're talking about, has like a plastic film on it, right? Those generally would have to go into the trash. Those can't be recycled.
What about colored paper?
Colored paper can be
Can be in the recycle.
recycled, excuse me, yes.
Great, thank you.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Right, we'll move on to council business. So item number 3, reading of the proclamation of Dark Skies Week. Read this. Pull out the nice original one. Right, so if you don't know, council was asked a little while ago to proclaim Dark Sky Week 2026. So if those of you that aren't familiar with that, how this works, someone brings this to the council, and a council member has to support it and bring it, and then they bring it in front of us. We vote on whether or not to read it. So this one was voted on to be read. So, right. So proclamation, Dark Sky Week 2026. Whereas International Dark Sky Week is observed in April on the week of the new moon, and whereas the experience of standing beneath a starry night sky inspires feelings of wonder and awe and encourages stewardship of our shared environment and our magnificent dark skies. And whereas dark skies are an integral aspect of the sustainability of Oregon's wild ecosystems, as a key environmental factor in bird migration, insect pollination, and human sleep patterns. And whereas Oregon's dark skies are a significant natural resource, with 7 accredited international dark sky places to date: Sun River, Prineville Reservoir State Park, Oregon Caves National Monument, City of Antelope, Oregon Outback Sanctuary, and Cottonwood Canyon State Park, and the City of Sisters. Whereas Eastern Oregon holds the world's largest dark sky sanctuary and an area of the largest pristine night skies in the contiguous 48 states. And whereas astrotourism, including stargazing, astronomy star parties, and dark sky photography, is an evolving facet of outdoor recreation with real economic benefits for communities across Oregon, and which promotes the mitigation of light pollution. And now, therefore, we, the City of Prineville Council, proclaim April 13th through the 20th, 2026 to be International Dark Sky Week in Prineville, Oregon, and encourage all Oregonians to join in this observance.
Thank you.
Is there anybody in the audience that was here accepting this tonight? All right. We'll hold on to it.
Jason, I'll take it. Because the observatory and I'll present.
Ah,
it to the
right.
chair.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, item 4, Empire Reimbursement District. This will be a public hearing. Randy Blakeney and Jared Reed. And I will open the public hearing before we start.
Thank you, Mayor. Jared Reed, City Attorney for the record. In front of you tonight is an engineer's report that was drafted by our engineer, Mr. Blakeney. Sorry, we're still getting to know each other. This is pursuant to a request that was made for a reimbursement district. Reimbursement districts are allowed within our code. We don't do them very often. The last one was done about 8 years ago, but this request has been made by a developer. And so in essence, it is pursuant to Chapter 39 of our code. Any person who constructs public improvements capable of providing services to property other than that property that is owned by them may file an application with the city and request the city to establish a reimbursement district. And when they do that, there are a number of requirements that the city has to do. One of the first requirement is for our engineer to actually establish or do a report for the council to review, and also to make recommendations to the council about whether the reimbursement district is appropriate. I'll let Mr. Blakeney do that, and then after he does it, the council will give an opportunity to the folks that are monetarily affected by the formation of this public hearing to speak. Also, to be frank, the code's a little ambivalent about what type of public hearing this is, so I was just being safe and having a full public hearing. Specifically, the two persons that get noticed specifically are folks that are monetarily affected, and we'll give them an opportunity to see if they're on Zoom or even in the audience tonight after Mr. Blakeney presents, and then we could take testimony from anybody else. But it's really, these districts only affect those specific properties. The city writ large doesn't get any sort of monetarily affected by it. After tonight, the city council shall either approve, reject, or modify the recommendations. And if approved, we will have a resolution for approval at a later council day. And with that, Mr. Blakeney can present his report.
Good evening, council. For the record, I'm Randy Blakeney, Assistant City Engineer. I did it. So the report, it goes over a description of the improvements, the benefited properties. Will cover the eligible public improvement costs, how much it costs, allocation, how long the reimbursement district will last for, the status of the improvements, and then the recommendation. So description of the improvements on Empire Drive are constructed would include blasting, excavation, grading, road construction, sanitary sewer, water, storm drainage, dry utilities, testing, and paving. These were all confirmed by contractor invoices provided by the contractor. The payment verification shown in Exhibit F, payment verification bank letter from First Interstate Bank, confirms the following payments on the work itself, and that total to approximately $1.59 million. So much the district will be set up for. The benefited properties, the next section of the benefited properties can be seen in Exhibit A. The map, I know the map's a bit wonky to see. It's kind of sketched out a little bit, but it's, if you have any questions on it, I did print another one that's a little more clear in color. If that's okay, I can pass that around if need be. But yeah, so it's the final plat, identifies tax lot 300 or parcel 3. That's where it was built through in order to get it for provide the frontage, that provides frontage access and utility service capacity to adjacent future and developing industrial parcels. So they did that in order to do that. Properties included within the proposal reimbursement district are those that have frontage along the improved segment of Southwest Empire Drive, or have the ability to connect to the installed water, sewer, or storm infrastructure. Properties already independently served or not directly benefited by the installed infrastructure are not included within the district. So they have to touch that improved area in order to be included in the district. The next section of eligible public improvement costs, like I said before, it's roughly around $1.59 million, and that's based on the payment verification from the contractor. Kind of covers that. The next section of cost allocation, it's a proportional share that's determined how much each benefited property has to pay. So whatever that frontage is along that improved area is how much they'd have to pay on that. The payment would be required at the time of building permit issuance. That's how it would be collected. Utility connection or prior to certificate of occupancy, currency with applicable system development charges and connection fees.
Remind me.
The duration of the reimbursement district is 10 years as indicated. So they'll be able to collect on that for 10 years.
Just to help with the location, we thought we'd bring this up to make it easier. This is 2025 aerial. The section of road they're talking about is basically from the end of these water and sewer lines, which are extended. They're just not on this map yet. This road here section, this section. And then that. So really the only lot that is part of this reimbursement district is this 25 acres here. The only other frontage, the owners of these portions here are the ones that applied. That make it easier to see?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Go ahead, Randy, sorry.
Thank you for the assistance there, sir. Status of improvements. So the improvements have been constructed and payments verified through the receipts. Final acceptance by the city shall be subject to completion of standard requirements, including inspection, submission of as-built drawings, and execution of bill of sale. So based on all this whole package that was sent out, Exhibit A through G, I recommend that the Empire Drive Reimbursement District be established in accordance with this report and the accompanying documents. Are there any questions I can help try to clarify?
No, I think what you guys were talking about, those businesses are the ones asking for this on the bottom.
Yes, sir.
Yes, and these are all kind of related. So this was a property that they partitioned this up. They had to build the road for themselves. Our ordinance 777 allows them to apply for a reimbursement district for anybody who might be served by that road, which is really only this one property.
Because they own the other properties?
Yeah, this was all one lot, one owner when they built the road.
Okay, and so they partitioned and sold off that 25 acres?
No, the 25 acres was always separate.
Oh, okay.
This is centerline drilling and R2 contractors here. There's now a lot here, and here. And then of course a remainder lot up here. That was all part of the original applicant. So they still own all that. That's why they're not separated, because they were one entity at the time.
I've got no questions other than just as long as they were happy with it. We've done this in the past, so. Council have any questions?
I'm for it.
Well, we need to hear
Yeah,
from the
Well,
public.
that's true. All right. Is there anybody in the audience?
Well, we'll start with the actual, sorry, again, it's a little bit of a hybrid public hearing because we have specific persons that we have the opportunity to present. So the first one, there's only two, fortunately, in this case. And the first is TYM USA Inc., which would be the property that's affected by the reimbursement district. Is there anybody in the audience representing TYM USA Inc.? Or if you're on Zoom, please use the raise hand button. All right. And the second interested person is R&D Investment Group LLC, which is the applicant for the reimbursement district. And so this would be the entity that would be reimbursed.
They're here.
Would you like to make any sort of statement? Is that okay? Did you get that? Okay. Sorry, we have a record on it. Now you can call for the
Or
group.
anybody else
Yeah.
for this?
Mhm.
So now it's open. The public hearing portion is open. Would anybody else like to speak to the council regarding this? Is there anybody on Zoom raising their hands? All right. I'll close the public hearing portion.
All right, so what would be for the council tonight, if the council wants to approve the city engineer's report as presented, it would be a motion to that effect. You also can do a motion to reject the city engineer's report or to modify it.
I'll move to approve the city engineer's report.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, passed unanimously. All right, we'll move on to the intent to award Fairmont Area Waterline Improvements Project. Mike Casperger.
Good evening, council. Mike Casperger, Assistant City Engineer for the record. As you just mentioned, we're here to discuss the staff report for the Fairmont Area Waterline Project. It's a project in the northwest area of town that consists of about 3,500 lineal feet of pipeline on Fairmont, Ewan, Beaver, and Deer Streets. These lines are either old lines, decrepit lines, or undersized lines. So as a matter of fact, one of them, I believe, is the last section of wood stave pipe we have in the city. So this will complete that project up. We had about 8 responsive bidders, and McKernan Enterprises were the apparent low, and the staff recommendation is to approve the intent to award the Fairmont Area Waterline improvements to McKernan Enterprises in the amount of $612,961.49. Is there anything any questions I might answer?
Might have.
All right.
Have we used them in the past?
I'm sorry.
And the disparity in the bids from high to low seem pretty.
McKernan Enterprises is a very qualified bidder. We've used them at least 5 times since I've been here with excellent success each time, many of which have been considerably lower than the rest of the bidders. So I'm very comfortable with McKernan, and they can do the project, and I would not hesitate at all to use them. Go ahead.
Can I have just a little piece of the old wood pipe before you throw it away?
We're not going to take it out of the ground, but if I can get a hold of
Find
something,
a chunk.
if I find a chunk, I'll give you a holler. How's that?
So are these the tracks that are north of Third Street on Deer and Ewan?
Yeah, they're actually north of the creek.
Huh?
So north of the creek. So basically from 7th to 9th Street on Fairmont, Beaver, full runs, and then on Ewan, it goes from 8th to 10th. And then on 9th Street, we'll go from Deer to Fairmont.
Thank you.
And then there's one more on Claypool, actually, that goes from on 10th Street from Claypool to Beaver.
Thank you.
All right, certainly.
I move to approve the intent to award the Fairmont Area Waterline improvements to McKernan Enterprises in the amount of $612,961.49.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, passed unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Mike, those wooden pipes were from World War II, correct?
That's correct.
So
Yeah, they've been in a long time.
the last remnants of, and because for the history buff, but it was because we didn't want to use metal.
That's
We wanted to give up all the metal for the war effort. So if anybody's ever interested out here in this case, there is a piece of the wooden pipes. Yeah. All right, so we're on to item number 6, hemp processing plant complaints discussion. Josh Smith.
Good evening, council. For the record, Joshua Smith, Planning Director, City of Prineville. This is a discussion item on the council business primarily because the council received an email. This has been an ongoing issue, but you actually received a physical complaint to the council, and the planning commission received it. I think some staff members as well. Going back to 2020 or so, when the hemp facility actually was 2019, because they took over from a different hemp facility. It came in. It was a slow process getting going. We kind of had the assumptions that we might have this issue. So in the change of use for that facility, we're talking about the wood grain, the old wood grain plant. There's specific items in those conditions that say you can't create a nuisance due to odor, smell, and there's dust and other things too. But generally, all of our industrial zones don't allow you to create a nuisance. What level nuisance that is up for debate, and that's why council eventually has to either declare a nuisance or not. But at this point, we're getting enough complaints that it's reaching kind of that council level. I communicate regularly with the facility to let people know, hey, I'm getting complaints, something's got to be adjusted or whatnot. And so far, every year, we've been able to fix it within the month or so. This year has not happened, kind of started up in February. And I got 2 complaints today. I think Rich Evans, one of our public works superintendent, he gets stopped in the streets. I mean, put in his truck, and it's getting to the point where multiple people are stopping us in the streets, and it's kind of getting a little out of hand. So at this point, I feel we needed to rise it to your level and make you aware of it and see what kind of pattern or how you wanted to proceed with those complaints. I do have someone, I don't want to put him on the spot, but Chris is here in the audience from the facility if you would like to have any questions and want to talk to him. But I'll leave that up to you. It's not a public hearing.
Josh,
I-
it seems,
Go ahead. I have some follow-up to Josh after your question.
it seems to me that they put a filtration system in there.
That was one of the fixes, yes, and it seemed to work. That was two years ago, I think it was. I don't know, and that's the thing. I don't know what changes from year to year. I think maybe they're just getting too large and it can't be controlled. It is an old facility. Those are old buildings. I don't know about their storage facility. That was the last thing we talked about doing, was putting a filtration system on the actual building where they store the super sacks of the milled hemp. I don't know if that's ongoing, but these are all the types of things we've been talking about. If you look at the decision that goes back to 2020, it talks about different items that could be mitigated to help resolve the situation.
Thank you. Jared Reed, City Attorney for the record. Just to clarify one thing particularly, this was set on the agenda at the request of the mayor as a result of that complaint that was given to council over, I need to look at the date, but council received an email regarding a formal complaint in regards to the smell of this facility. And Mayor Beebe asked this to be on the agenda tonight to discuss potential options that the city council may have. So I was able to review that. As Mr. Smith indicated, the 2019 opinion, there is a conditional of approval that states that the facility shall not create a nuisance because of noise, smoke, odor, dust, or gas, or anything else listed in the M2 zone, and which is declared to be a nuisance by the city. Mitigating measures shall be taken if a nuisance originating from the facility is evident. The primary concern is odor. Mitigating measures for eliminating odor may include, but are not limited to, reducing storage or types of storage on site, maintaining sealed containers of biomass prior to and after processing, sealing gaps in buildings, and or adding filtered controlled venting to the outside that removes odor. So this is a relatively convoluted paragraph in certain ways when we look at it. And I think it provides a couple of options, but really my opinion is it provides really a phased approach option for council in particular. And so again, we have to remember that this tonight was simply just a complaint and the mayor asked it to be on the agenda. I'm glad we have a representative, but they didn't actually get notice formally of this discussion. And so, because of that, you really are not in a situation from a legal standpoint where you can just declare a nuisance. Any sort of declaration of nuisance would have to be a formal process that would allow for notice, allow for public testimony, comment, and so forth. So that option, just that first sentence of that clause that I read, really isn't, in my opinion, available right now. You could declare it, or I'm sorry, ask for a public hearing, and we could go through that process. But in reading this particular language, I think a more prudent course, if council wishes to move forward, would be the second portion, which talks about that mitigating measures shall be taken, if a nuisance originated from the facility is evident, in particular that nuisance being smell. So accordingly, if the council wants to direct mitigating measures be taken because they believe there's evidence of a nuisance, this would be based on your own discussion, then you could make that direction, and then we could move forward with the start of that formal process, which would be to notify the property owner and the facility operators of the requirement to take mitigating efforts, and it's subject to the 2019 order. And then you would, in essence, after that notice got sent out, which would be pretty soon, obviously, you'd give a date to like the second meeting of May, for instance, to allow for a review, and then obviously the formal invitation to the property owners and facility operators to come in front of council to discuss the mitigating measures that they have taken. And so really, in my opinion, from a legal standpoint, that would, your options tonight is to say what there isn't a particular issue, or to say, I think there may be an issue here based upon the complaints and other complaints you may be hearing from your constituents, and to direct staff to move forward with a notice to institute mitigating measures.
Josh, can we hear from Mr. Evans, I believe his name was, that's getting daily complaints?
Rich?
From Rich?
You're the council, he's a staff member, so yeah.
Yeah, so I'd like to hear from him what the complaints are, if you don't.
Sure.
While Rich is on his way up here, I can tell you, I live right there, pretty close to it. Well, actually, I live about 3/4 of a mile away, and I can smell it pretty strong in my house. I actually thought I had a dead animal in the yard somewhere, so I went and looked around. I get calls all the time. I get messages that aren't public because they're personal, sent to me. They're not. This was the first one that came through the proper channels for us to see it. So.
Can I touch on that real quick, Mayor? Just before you get started on that, hemp is a very distinguishable smell, and so is marijuana, and it is legal to grow it here. And I live on the complete opposite side of this facility. I don't smell it, but I do smell plants being grown locally from neighbors of mine. So I mean, it could be possible that this isn't all on the hemp facility too. I mean, I want everybody to keep an open mind on that, because I have seen grow operations in backyards that are not hemp, but in fact cannabis, and it is a very similar odor. So just kind of try to keep an open mind that those smells are within our town in various areas. So I want to make that point. I'm not saying that there's not an odor coming from this facility, because I've driven by it and there is, but it can also be in other areas.
Rich Evans with the City of Prineville Public Works Superintendent. So for the past probably 2.5 months, pretty much weekly, I've been getting calls or getting stopped out in the street or up on Peters Road about the smell of the plant. Um, I've got complaints up the North Main area, Mariposa, the area by the storage sheds to the north of the facility. And pretty much all the surrounding areas, people that have called, I basically ask them, where do you live? And you'll get different areas, seems like more complaints when it's more humid. For example, this morning on the way to work, I came down North Main. I couldn't smell it, but later on in the morning, I was driving out Peters Road, headed towards Comb Flat Extension, and you could smell it pretty strong right in that area. So I've passed these complaints on to Josh, and I've passed it on to Jim Ledford and Sully up there that they manage the property, and I believe they've shared the information with the company owners.
Are you getting complaints in Northridge too?
I haven't got anybody that's on the upper end up in Northridge. So that lower area where you enter it, yes.
You're getting one from the upper end too.
Yeah.
That's where I live.
The mayor, yeah.
And I can smell it pretty strong in I didn't know what, that's why I looked around being, I have a farm field behind me. I wanted to double check, but you can get, it's not like it's permeating to my house every day. But once in a while when the wind's right stuff, you can get it. And it just like circles around that. So personally, when bringing this up was I wanted to look at mitigation factors because Josh has been working at this for a few years and it seems to work for a while, but we can't keep doing this. And I wanted to look at mitigation factors to try to figure out how we can solve this issue because for one, I am pro business and I don't want to see something happens to them down the road. I would rather work with them now trying to fix the problem and mitigate that smell. So, but
Any other questions?
Rich, thank you.
Thank you for coming in.
You bet.
So yeah, to Shane's point, I do ask that question first. Is your neighbor smoking a joint? I mean, that does come up and that does happen. And but it's usually temporary and it's obvious. It's a different smell. And it almost moves around and almost up like a plume. This morning I got a very angry person in the Polish Homes, the Ocho Point area. He can't open his windows last night. And it was just this horrible thing. So he called me 8 a.m. in the morning. He's on the phone. As well as somebody in North Mains or just up in the trailer park up there. So it moves around. It's kind of not distinctive. You could be standing right next to it and not smell a thing. And then a neighborhood away, it's there. Barnes Butte area, I've gotten complaints of people walking out in Barnes Butte, like what? And it kind of sinks. It tends to sink kind of down by the wetland. It'll just drift into there and hang. And I think that's kind of the problem. So like you said, the humidity, sometimes the temperature makes a difference. Sometimes you have a clear day and everything vents straight up and out and it's gone. So I don't know. We've had multiple facilities. We had other smaller facilities in our community down on Industrial Park Road. They didn't have that issue. They were newer buildings. They were smaller facilities. That might have something to do with it. I've toured some others that didn't have the same issue. On the outside, you walk inside, you can smell it very strongly, but you walk outside the building and it goes away. So it might just be a volume issue. I don't know. That's to the mayor's point. I think it might be time to give them a kind of a formal mitigation letter like Jared was talking about and say, hey, let's work together on that and see if we can make something work.
One other thing I will bring up, and Jared, you talked about a public hearing of sorts in the future. Because I haven't really gotten a formal complaint, I can't say is that what we need yet, but I've gotten enough complaints from people as like Rich said, or Josh, or any of the other counselors that have had a complaint. I just got messages today about it, so I feel it's warranted to the mitigation to move forward, to try to find a solution, but I know there's a lot of people in the community too that were on social media, I will say this, and I try to use that lightly, but were in an uproar and wanted to come in and talk to us and said, when can we come in and talk? So it said, not yet, because it's not really open. You can always email us or whatever, but I know there's some people that want to talk to this issue that live up there or pretty close to where I live in that area. So, but
Yeah, so, obviously, I mean, wait, this is a public meeting, so everybody has the ability to come and talk to council regardless of invitation. So, we asked people if they wanted to talk tonight. So if folks want to come talk to you, they can at any point. You're absolutely right, and that's in regards that you haven't actually had a lot of official public comment regarding this particular issue. And from my perspective, that is the reason in regards to moving forward in what options you have, right? And so like if you do any sort of declaration of nuisance, that's going to be required to do a public hearing to give the property owner and the facility operator the opportunity to present evidence. In my opinion, you would be revoking a privilege, which would invoke some due process rights that they would have the opportunity to present, their evidence, and you would hear from the community at large. You could also just ask for a public hearing in regards to the actual issue if you wanted to gather, opinions. But regarding your options, I mean, that is an option tonight as well. But one option also is sort of this immediate option that is available to you in my opinion, without any sort of legal scruples, in that it says that if the nuisance is evident, well, you're not declaring it, you believe it's evident, you can ask that mitigation methods be applied. And then you would, obviously, if you're going to ask for those mitigating efforts, you have to give a time to see if they are applied or that they work or that they're being done. You'll have to give a formal invitation to the folks that are using those mitigating methods to explain to you what they've done and why they haven't worked. And then at that point, if you still believe that there could be a nuisance, that's when I would be comfortable saying, you can declare a public hearing to actually have some evidentiary presentation and decision. But without that formal requirement and, check-in to see how it worked, the way that language is presented, I don't think it's prudent just to go straight to a public hearing.
and I want to clarify something. I didn't tell people not to come in and talk to us.
Fair enough.
I just said we weren't having a public hearing on yet. That down the road that could happen. So that's what I meant by that. Because a lot of people asked me if they could come in tonight as a public hearing about this. And I said, well, we're not really having a public hearing. We're just discussing. But like Jared said, anybody is welcome to come and present or ask questions or talk to the council always. And I always appreciate that when they do. So, if council, sorry, Steve.
Well, I support business. I also recognize the needs of the community. And I think that the beginning of the process for mitigation or explore mitigation, I think is appropriate. And invite the community, the neighbors to come speak their piece at a public hearing at the earliest convenience.
Well, so we're talking two different things. So the idea would be, the way the staff report was written back in the day was to allow for mitigation. We never tried to jump to conclusions, right? So the reason it's written the way it is it's supposed to be a kind of a step process. First, you do the formal letter like, hey, we're getting these complaints, so now we need to ask for you to try to mitigate these things. And I actually put mitigation measures in that condition. At some date in the future, we would bring the owner and the client back to say, okay, did you fix it or not? We'll probably know at that point whether they did or not. At that meeting is when we would likely talk to the owners, the operators, and then decide whether we need to have a public hearing to determine the nuisance.
So the first step is a letter.
The first step is a formal letter, because right now it's just me on the phone and on emails and talking to them. This would be like a formal, you guys need to mitigate this letter from the city.
But we've heard through Rich and through you, we've heard sufficiently that there is a concern in the community.
Right,
And
and so-
we need
right.
to initiate that initial letter. And I believe that would
Because
be.
we've always tried to mitigate first. I've always been able to mitigate. We've never had to go this far before. It's just a different, unique type of situation.
Question.
Yeah.
Do we have a written established timeline for them to,
Yes.
to make mitigation efforts, or do we establish?
That would be,
that
you would establish that, like, say, do you want to give them
90 days or
60 days, 90 days, whatever you want to give them to show that they've mitigated or try to mitigate those actions. That's what you would put in this letter. That's what Jared was saying, May 28th, whatever that meeting would be. You can make that call tonight, and that's what, Jared would write the letter and send it.
And I'm guessing that probably some kind of filtration upgrades would be required for this mitigation to have success. But on that note, I don't have any clue on a timeline to receive and install these kind of mitigation.
And that would be,
I want to give them a, a
Right.
solid chance.
and
So,
so in my opinion, at that meeting that we set the date for, that would be the discussion you might have. They would come in and say, hey, we're right in the middle of it. We have it going on, or something like that would occur. They have a filtration system now in one of their buildings. Some of the problem is the doors are open. The storage facility doesn't currently have one. They told me they were working on that. Those types of things are happening. Yeah, I don't know their operations enough to know what they have to do, but we have to set some kind of timeline and expectation.
right.
So Josh, you have been talking to them about it, though.
Sure.
Smells in that by phone. this
Mm-hmm.
year.
Yes. So, oh yes. So typically when I usually talk to Phil Swindle. As I get complaints, I let him know. So he can kind of see time of day, what they were doing at that moment to understand when these calls come in. I say, hey, I got a call last night. It was at 5 p.m. Were you guys doing something then? So he can kind of try to understand what's happening on the facility operationally wise that might be causing it. And so that's most of my communication, is just to let them know what's going on and coming in. And as I get calls from the public, I also tell them, we're working on it. I've been trying to mitigate this over time, and I think we just probably need to step it up a little bit, because once summer hits, people are going to be opening their windows in the evening, and that's when it's really going to be a problem.
I agree. I think to start the mitigation process, unofficially, I've heard about it many, many times and all that. As far as a timeline, I guess I would look at staff to kind of help us to.
Well, one of the things I want to kind of just clarify a few things in regards to this, how this condition is written, right? I mean, it's a two-step thing, right? The first thing is mitigating measures shall be taken if a nuisance originating from the facility is evident. All right. And to Councilor Effelman's point, there was evidence presented tonight, or comments presented tonight, that shows that nuisances originating from this facility are evident. And so that could give you enough to say we are ordering mitigation measures to happen, or directing them to happen. That's what that notice to mitigate is. Mitigation in its definition is simply just taking an issue and making it less. The level of that spectrum can be wide, and it can be long lasting too. So whatever date this is, let's say it is 60 days, like I recommended, that might not be enough for full mitigation, but you could see enough mitigation. And when you discuss this with, I know we have one of the representative here, but when you discuss it with the representatives formally after they've had an opportunity to present, this is what we've done, this is what's working, this is what isn't. At that point, that date, that May 28th review date, it's simply that, right? You could be in a situation where you say, okay, we want to continue going down mitigation paths, and we'd like to, review this again in 6 weeks. You could say, okay, no, you've done a great job mitigating. Thank you for working with us. Or you could say, no, this is the problem persists. and whatever mitigation efforts you have made have been insufficient for the community. And so we would like to move forward to see if an actual nuisance is appropriate and do a public hearing. And so, you know, you really, there is a lot of flexibility where you're at now in regards to the timeline.
I like the idea of doing a letter and giving them the 60 days. And that way they can come forward and show us what they've done within that time period. Whether they're able to be totally successful or minimally successful, but at least they can show some progress within that 60 days.
Okay. I mean, if that's what the council wishes to do, my advice would be to do a motion directing staff to issue a notice to mitigate to the property and operator of the facility, and put this back on the agenda for the second meeting in May.
Can I so move? Or do I need to repeat that?
Do you have that clarified enough? You can say so moved.
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. So direct staff to send out a letter. Oh,
We'll get that out and we'll get that on the agenda for May 28th. I think it's 28th.
No, I think that was a Thursday.
Oh, the fourth Tuesday of May.
The 26th.
26th, my apologies.
All right, so move on to the staff reports and requests. City manager's report, Mr. Forrester.
Thank you, Mayor. Starting out again with public safety and dispatch, police department will be interviewing 4 candidates for the last available opening that we have, and we're hopeful to have that last position filled soon. So we've been running really well in terms of keeping our positions full up there for patrol in particular. So a lot better shape than we've been in for a long time. It's that time of year again when all the spring and summer activity plans are getting put together. We're talking rodeo, parade, horse races, those type of things, 4th of July festivities. Also, the final part of the Axon installation is underway. That's the upgrades to our camera equipment. Then all operations will be fully Axon equipped across the board. So that means not only, fire and rescue and us and all the other public safety agencies. So that'll be a nice upgrade. You got introduced to Rich Evans, our Public Works Superintendent, in Casey's absence. Casey should be back in action this coming Monday. Everything's doing well with him. But I'd like to ask Mr. Evans to come up and give a quick update on what's going on at Public Works. So Rich has not been here very many times. We're lucky to have Rich as our superintendent, and he's doing great work out there, getting a lot of good things done. And so if you don't mind, Rich, a quick update would be great.
Okay. We've got a couple well projects going on. We've got our ASR 2 well up across from the airport on the south side of the highway, well underway. We also have our horizontal well in the permitting and design phase for the Crooked River Park. Other projects we have coming up, the annual weed spraying was underway starting today and will end the end of April. We also have the South Main paving and stormwater project going to be coming online here real soon. We'll meet with the contractors next week and set that in motion, as well as we have the Fairmont Waterline project that you approved just earlier, and our wastewater treatment plant headworks rail system and pump replacement going on. So we've got a lot of things happening here in the real near future.
Anybody have any questions of Rich while we got him up there? Thank you, sir. Keeping with the spirit of getting our staff to come up and speak, our railroad manager, I'd like to ask Matt Wiederholt to come up. We've been very busy out the railroad. We have a lot of interest with a lot of different companies, and Matt and I would like to kind of share that with you. So Matt, Give us an update, please.
Yeah, just two quick small wins, but they're significant for us. The first being Steve and I had a lunch with Dustin Wilson. So for some of you that don't know Dustin, he's the manager of McCall Oil. We try to do that every, I don't know, 5 or 6 months. He's also on our railroad committee, very knowledgeable, very smart. So it was an interesting conversation with Dustin, kind of in the weeds, but he talked about how things in California are going to affect us with the refineries and things of that nature. So, but with the railroad business, they were thinking about the same as last year. So we could expect to see about 215 to 220 cars for the asphalt season. It's a little bit below average. Last year was a little below average as well. Attributing that to, of course, the ODOT funding or lack of the ODOT funding. Some of those bigger state projects just aren't gonna hit. In a good year with them, we'll do about 310 cars per season. But with that said, they did sign a lease or kind of a sublease essentially with a company that will do emulsions with them. So this is great because they'll set up shop right next to McCall and buy the oil directly from McCall and have a little office and stuff there. So what that means for us is about 50 to 60 more rail cars through that facility starting next year. But what we can see with the city is it's about 4 more employees down there. So that would give it about 8 total employees down there. Steve asked him, what we can expect for wages and stuff like that. It was $31 an hour, I think is what they're starting out. Yeah. And then benefit package with they had a retirement and healthcare and everything. So not too terrible. So we could see 8 full-time employees down there. We'll have to do some sort of usage agreement with a new company. They're in the process right now of a site agreement or a site plan to get to Josh. That'll be kind of the next step is to see that. Well, the next step is going to be to work with Jerry, get some sort of agreement in place, not necessarily a track agreement or a lease, but just something that covers us if there was an issue, a spill or some sort of catastrophe down there, obviously. And then they're working on the site plan with Josh or for Josh to get to him and then to the county. So that was a good win. And then the other thing that happened this week is we signed a lease with, a track agreement with a company called Oil Works. So I really need to, thanks Jared. I think we got it to him on Sunday and like Monday he had it and signed and away we went, but smaller volume, about 35 rail cars a year. But it's a new commodity, new customer. We're gonna set them up behind the feed store. So what that'll look like is they'll come in off of Lamana. So it'll be a one-way because we don't want any kind of truck traffic coming off of Main there at the auto body shop. So what it'll look like, it'll be a one-way off of Lamana, kind of right there at Deer Street. They'll come in, they'll offload or the rail cars onto their trucks and then come back out on Main and just do like a right turn there. With that said, it's only 30, 35, 32, something like that cars. So it won't be a terrible amount of trucks, maybe 100 a year, 90 a year. And what that is it's a used oil. So it's similar to like a thermal fluids type process where they go and pick up oil at customers and then they filter it and they use that oil to operate asphalt plants. So kind of this last 2 weeks, kind of a theme there for us on the railroads, more asphalt business. This will specifically go up to Dan and crew up there. I forget there, Scott, you'll have to remind the Hyde County. Yeah. So it'll go up there and they'll operate their boiler with used oil. So a couple good wins. So any questions?
Thanks, Matt.
Yep.
Hey, Steve.
Yes.
Before we move forward, I thought of a question for you or Rich, whoever.
Sure.
The projects that we're doing like South Main, with the house prices going up, how's that affect those projects like that? Since we've already agreed to a price, does that affect us or?
Well, Rich, if I say something wrong, come up and correct me. No, the ones that were locked in. It's interesting you bring that up because Matt and I brought that up with Dustin. Remember, Dustin deals in the asphalt oil product, and what he said was, and help me out, Matt, if I think I got this right. He said most companies that are in this type of business have about a 3-month inventory of oil product. So what he's saying is, you know, if the high prices persist the next couple months, that you're going to see some spiking going on. And did I get that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I'm done. Yeah.
Something else that's interesting that he said, and back to the California refineries, which I thought was
Right.
extremely interesting. You know, California is currently shutting down their refineries, or they're not going to issue permitting for those refineries. So he referred to the Rocky Mountain Refinery Group. So Tacoma, Montana, there's a refinery just to the north of Montana in Canada, and that group is pretty close to capacity. So what his fear is that as they shut down the refineries in California, Sacramento North will start pulling off of that Rocky Mountain group. So it could be an increase of as much as 50%. You know, fuel, it could affect that, but what it will affect for sure is the asphalt, because a lot of the asphalt in the Northwest is produced year round, but there's no need in the wintertime where there is in California, right? So they get cheap asphalt, like Steve's saying, they get their supplies ahead of time. There's been times on our line when Dustin's picked up 60, 65 rail cars and we've stored on our line because it's extremely cheap in the wintertime because it's a byproduct. So what his fear is that as those refineries in California, they're going to start sucking up that asphalt from this refinery group, and we could see a significant increase in the future after this war or whatever's over, and that starts to level out. We could be the victims of those shutdowns in California in the next couple of years. More than likely, is what he said.
Thank you.
Yeah. And just so everybody knows, Oregon does not have any refining or distribution capacity at all. So, okay, any other questions for Rich, Matt, or myself on the subject so far? Moving on to Meadow Lakes, super busy out there. Zach and his team have really been gearing up for the season and been basically just crazy busy out there. So good news. The numbers look real good. Also, we're getting ready for irrigation season. With it being so dry this early, they'll probably see some pour out on the course the next couple of weeks, if not sooner. On the planning side, Josh is trying to secure funding to offset the cost of the land development code updates. Also, the tap house on Second Street across from Gee's is moving along nicely, and hopefully we'll see that open soon. Horseshoe as well over on 4th Street with its renovations. Also new sidewalks, decorative street lighting, and a power pole coming down to further improve the downtown appearance in that general area. Human resources policy updates are underway. We are actively recruiting for Meadow Lakes and the railroad and IT. Information technology, keep in mind, folks, of just as a friendly reminder is, you know, our IT department covers a lot of country and on the public safety side. So Crook County Sheriff, Crook County Fire Department, Prineville Police Department. So those integrated phone systems are all the same. So when we do an upgrade, we jump around, or the IT team does, Ryan and the gang. And so the fire department phone system upgrade went great. And city facilities will be getting the same phone system upgrades in the near future. On the finance side, we have a doodle poll out for our budget committee to have an annual meeting and public hearing for the state revenue sharing, which is an annual event required by the state to participate in the revenue sharing program. We received word that we can expect a 5 to 10% increase initially for base premiums this year from our insurance company. Prior year before average 4% increase in property values and 2% increase in along with a 2% increase in property values are factored in. For workers' comp, our experience rate has been improving. It was 1.13. Now we're down to 1.02. Anytime you get down to close to 1, that's a great thing. And remember, the reason we focus on safety, a big help from Lisa Morgan, is it's a big cost savings to the city and the taxpayer if we have a good incident rate is reflected directly in how much premiums we pay. So that's why we invest a lot of time and effort to do all we can to make this a safe workplace. Moving on to public relations, social media remains relatively calm and mostly positive. Economic development and strategic initiatives. The the Chrissy grants, the next round that Caroline's been so successful with working with Matt and getting this last round, $2 million, 400,000 of that was the match. That's moving ahead, and another round is coming up. So we're going to be getting in line, getting that application completed for the next round. Caroline and Josh did a joint presentation in a regional EDCO meeting where we were able to share Prineville's success stories on how we've rebuilt our economic base. And it went very well and garnered quite a bit of positive attention for our community. Rest of the fire district is reporting that fire season is showing up early, as we just kind of touched on with the drier weather and not much snowpack. Fire district's also busy recruiting for firefighter position and a lieutenant position. That concludes my report. Do we have any questions tonight?
Have a comment.
Have a comment.
This is for the Meadow Lakes people. I was out working in my yard and a man came by on his bicycle. His golf cart was hitched on the back. I don't know what story he told his wife.
That is, that's impressive. Yeah. Any other questions or comments? All right. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council.
Item number 8, middle income revolving loan, MIRL presentation. Mr. Smith.
Joshua Smith, Planning Director, City of Prineville. So this is a program from the state that was developed in 2024, Senate Bill 1537. It was updated last year, Senate Bill 48, to correct some problems. But it's a program that honestly, I went to all the meetings and saw how they created it, and I kind of dismissed it. Like, no one's ever going to use this. Only one city, I think actually a county, Tillamook County, has used it. I think there's 2 other cities looking at it. It's an interesting program because you have to be a kind of a special developer or have kind of a real interest in what you're trying to develop in order to use this program, because it's capping your profit margin. So I wanted to go through this program just to see if the council is interested in even standing up a program, because it requires the city to create the program to use the loan fund that the state has already created. So this presentation is a very truncated version of the state's presentation, which is like 3 different presentations. So I kind of cobbled them together into this one. The MIRL program, so it's a revolving loan fund, so it's designed to kind of refill itself. To boost housing production for moderate income individuals and families at or below 120% of AMI, so average median income. For reference, 100% of AMI is the average median income. 80% and below is considered low income, and 100% above, or 120 and above, is considered kind of that moderate and then above. So when you hear a lot of this in the affordable housing districts like Housing Works, they always work in that 80% and below. So this is really targeted at people who have living wage jobs. It's just that, but for this funding, they just can't quite afford the home that we all kind of reasonably think we should. So MIRL, Middle Income Revolving Loan Fund, it's intended to fill that gap funding to ensure a project is feasible for it to be at the affordable rate. So they'll put a project together. They'll say, hey, I can sell homes at, say, $400,000, but if I get this loan fund, I can sell them at $300,000. And that is how that is supposed to work, which is why I initially kind of dismissed, like, no one's ever going to apply for this, because you're basically truncating your profit margin. We do have somebody interested in it, which is why we're here talking to you guys about it. Cities and counties must sponsor the program. So funding is paid back through property taxes. That's how it revolves itself. And so that's why the city jurisdictions, the sponsoring jurisdiction, whether the city or the county, has to be involved. In our case, as a city in a county, it has to be both. That's kind of important. So city council, you can be all for it and want to do it, but if the county doesn't, it's kind of a moot point. Key partners, this comes through the Oregon Housing Community Services Department. So they're kind of the lead agency on this. They have all the information in the world. You can Google MIRL Oregon, and you can watch YouTube videos and confuse yourself 100 times over. But they are very prompt, and they will answer your questions. If you want them here in a meeting, they will be here and discuss this program. Sponsoring jurisdiction, this can be city or county, like I mentioned, requires an ordinance to pass to establish the program. You have to establish a program in order for you to create a program. Like I said, the sponsoring jurisdiction can be the city or the county, but if it's a project in the city, it has to be agreed upon by the county. So we could be the sponsoring jurisdiction, but we have to have an intergovernmental agreement with the county. Because like I said, they are the tax collector and they are the assessor. So that IGA is what basically says, we agree that you guys are going to do this for the period of time of the loan fund, and we won't accept those taxes in that period of time, which I'll get to later. Project applicant would be the developer. And this is the key part, the housing developer with an eligible housing project, which is determined by the sponsoring jurisdiction, city council. So it's not like you just open this program, they go through a normal land use process to get their development. You guys have a lot of say in what that development is, where it is, and how it gets developed, or what, the type of housing it is. So that's a whole part of the project that's really in the weeds that we can get into later if you decide to move forward. And then, of course, the fee payer, which is whoever the taxable person is. So if it's a single family home, it's the person who owns that home. If it's a multifamily, it's the person who owns the property that the multifamily is on. They are the ones that are going to pay the taxes like normal. They wouldn't know the difference. The assessor directs it back to the state versus to the county and the city and distributes it. So those are kind of your key partners in the whole thing. Project type, like I mentioned, so basically all housing types can be in this project. You as a sponsoring jurisdiction, if you choose to do this, can limit the project type. If you want to target only multifamily, you can target only multifamily. If you want to renting, single family, whatever you want to do, you can pick and choose, or you can just leave it open and let people apply and see what kind of projects you get. This is that affordability piece that I mentioned. So the loan is essentially passed on to the buyer renter. It's probably not a one-to-one, but that's essentially what is supposed to happen. We give you this loan to help you with your development. We cap what you can sell those homes or rent those homes at least 120. You can choose, the jurisdiction can choose to go to 100. You can choose all the way down to whatever you want, really. You can set the program however you want. The recommendation is 120 because that hits that middle income kind of level that we're not really helping out. You kind of got people at the top don't really need help. People at the bottom are getting help. It's this middle that's kind of getting left out. So that 120 is pretty key. Sponsoring jurisdiction decides what that is. Affordability periods for 10 years minimum. So you won't receive taxes from those properties for 10 years or until the duration of that loan agreement is paid off. The developer may not need a large loan. It might be a small loan, so it could take a lesser time. And a key point that I think some people like to look at the lower income things, that, well, when you hit a certain income, you get kicked out of your apartment. That doesn't happen. Definitely doesn't happen with this program. So say you bought one of these homes and you met the income level and then you got married and now you don't meet it. You do not get removed. You're still eligible. You can stay there. You can live there. It doesn't kick you out of any kind of eligibility for being in that program. Once the 10 years is up or the loan is gone, everything goes back to normal. It's just like any other home. You can sell it, buy it, whatever you want. How the funding is used. So it can be used for infrastructure costs, which is most likely, pre-development costs, which is generally your engineering. Construction costs, of course, would be the homes or renovations of existing commercial buildings, because this does allow you to renovate non-residential to residential, or land write-downs, which is essentially devaluing your property to make it cheaper. Included in that funding mechanism is fees for the sponsoring jurisdiction. 5% of whatever the loan amount is comes to the sponsoring jurisdiction to run that program. The assessor receives 1% of that to then do what they need to do on the assessor to make all those exceptions work. There's an inflationary factor, 3% built into the loan. And key point of this, yes, the taxes will be deferred for that 10 years, but the fire district are not. They will get their money because they have to protect the homes. So that is a carve out in the exception. So the program setup, basically you set up the program, you create this originating ordinance that creates the program. There's an application process which you have to create, and then this master agreement that goes to the state. That's when you absolutely have to have that county IGA. I actually thought I pulled that slide out because this says everything too. So sponsoring jurisdiction, this is the process overview. You create the program, you create the application process, whatever that might be, and actually have a process by which you approve that application and that project. The developer, or sorry, you'll do that ordinance first. Then there's the developer will submit a housing project. Hopefully that number one bullet you have backing by the county before you create the program. You don't have to, but you can create the program by itself, but it's nice to know if the county's on board, because otherwise you're going to go through a lot of process, and it could get stopped. The housing developer comes in with their project, you approve the project, and that's great. By the time you get to bullet point number 3, that's where that project and the funding recommendations and their pro forma goes to the state for approval. That's when you have to have the county IGA also signed. Once that's done, the loan program is actually fairly simple. The loan comes to the city grants it out to the developer, they do their project, and the assessor puts the exceptions into those lots, those rental homes, whatever they are, and then it goes back to the state until they refund the loan, and then that's it. There is a change that they made last year, like Senate Bill 48. You notice it says grants or loans or alternative sources. I think they found a hole. Theoretically, you don't have to have the tax base pay this back. You can pay it back in other ways. I don't know what that way would be. Other than, I think they found that there were housing renewal districts created that already utilized tax increment financing. And those communities that had that wanted to use this program within those districts. So they wanted to use the tax increment financing they already had to repay the loan instead of the tax base, which was already going to a different fund. So I think that's why they made that change. I don't think we would use that alternative method, but it is there as an option. And like I said at the beginning, if any council member wants to, just Google Oregon MIRL, and there's all kinds of assistance and programs and web pages available for this program. I think it's actually pretty interesting. If you get the right developer in place, it could be a benefit in the community and could build something that otherwise would not get built, at least at affordable levels that we are looking for. So, any council have any questions, Steve?
Yeah. Is the loan assumable?
Oh, assumable?
Yeah.
Meaning like the city?
Like if they sold before the 10-year period was up.
Oh, no. So no. So the way it works is like, even if I buy the home and I can't sell to whoever I sell to, you can sell it, but it has to meet the same criteria. And most likely we would, and we've already talked to them, Neighbor Impact would run the income levels for us. We would use part of that 5% and pay Neighbor Impact to do the vetting, so we don't have to, since they already have a program that does that.
Sounds like technically it would be kind of considered assumable, since the new buyer would have to buy it at that discounted rate.
The new buyer has to meet the same criteria as the original buyer.
Right.
Yeah.
But the seller can't sell high.
Right.
Per se.
You can't go above the cap. And that's
interesting.
Now, if you held it long enough, if you held it past the loan fund, which would be
10 years.
wise, then you can sell for whatever the market rate is.
Interesting.
So the sponsoring jurisdiction doesn't collect the property taxes for that 10-year period. That's what pays for the loan, correct?
Correct. So the property owners, yeah, which comes up front. The way I understand the program, it comes up front. So we get that money up front with the loan. And then that over that 10 years, the owners will pay taxes like normal. They won't know the difference.
Right.
The assessor will break it out and just send a check elsewhere. Except for the fire. Yeah.
Wow.
No, I like the incentive. I think that if we could put that together and we have a willing developer,
Yeah,
I think
it's,
it would be well worth the community, well worth it for the community to.
and they do all of the performa, they have to present their performa, how they're going to develop, why they need this gap funding. All that comes from the developer. They have to prove the reason they need the loan, kind of a thing. And they'll come to you with a proposal per se. You can create the application process and put in the criteria that you want, and then they will create a project based on that. If you make it too restrictive, you may not get a project, but that's where a lot of the work is done by the developer itself, and you simply say yay or nay, really. It comes down to it. It's a really open program. The state really put it all the way down here. The only problem we have is you're not the only body that needs to make the decision. So
That being said, has the county been approached yet with?
they have, and I mean, you can talk to your counterparts but they were kind of interested in what the city wanted to do. So it was kind of this chicken or egg, like who goes first. Theoretically, they could be the sponsoring jurisdiction as well, but then you would do the IGA. But you can't. I think the way the code, I went through several of these presentations, and it gets a little wonky because they say different things in different presentations. And one of them, it was like anybody can be the jurisdiction, and the other, it said, if it's projects in the city, we have to be the jurisdiction. Project in the county has to be the sponsoring jurisdiction. That's not what they told us on the website. So some of that stuff has to be worked out, but all in all, because we're in the city, we both have to agree to it anyway. It really doesn't matter who sponsors it. Other than we would have control over the application process. And it makes sense to be in the city. It makes sense for us to be the sponsoring jurisdiction if it's in the city. So we control the application process.
Josh, do you need a motion or what do you need from us to go forward?
No, I think this was informational only. This would be something that I think the council would ask to be brought back for an ordinance to stand up the program. I think might be some conversations with the county in the interim to see what their thoughts are. Because if you get a flat no from the county because of the tax, then
That kind of leads me to another question I had was, and Lori would probably be the best one for this, but the financial implications, if this project moves forward with us not collecting on a new development, collecting property taxes,
Yeah.
what does that look like on paper?
it's essentially like our enterprise zone, right?
Mhm.
We do enterprise zones for businesses all the time.
Right.
This is just for housing. It's the same
But we don't
concept and
generally do
principle.
it for housing.
We don't. We've never done it because we've never really had the opportunity, right? So it's the same thing. It's kind of the idea is that, but for this project, you probably wouldn't get a development. You wouldn't be getting the tax income anyway. Same thing did with the data centers. That was county property. We weren't getting revenue from that. So
I got another question. If the taxes that are being deferred that go back to the state,
they go back to this fund.
Okay,
So it can be used again.
That to be used anywhere in the state though?
Yes. So they actually they initially seeded the fund with 75 million. If I remember right, 20% of that was set aside for rural projects. We are not considered rural in Crook County in the list. It's like the eastern counties are considered rural, Harney and these places. So we wouldn't meet that. And then if that $10 million or what it is, whatever that 20% is, it isn't utilized within 2 years by a rural area, then it can be sucked back into the primary and be used. Depending on how successful the program is, like I said, only Tillamook County has done it so far. They may not seed more. If it's really successful, they may continue to seed it and see if we can get it larger. But right now it's 75 million. Only one jurisdiction has used. Now, once it's gone, it's gone. So that's why getting in kind of early might be a little important, because if they come in and they don't have the money to loan out, then we have to wait for the revolving to come back around.
And what type of criteria is there for the housing that goes into this?
That's back to that slide. Oops. You can do any of these types of, it's all housing really. I mean, what I would recommend, I would leave it open for someone to propose me a project instead of trying to square them. Because you could get high density, single family lot subdivision. You can get these apartment complexes that we came in. You can say, you can dictate this in the program as you stand it up to what, if you want to target a certain one or not one, you can leave it out. Like if you're not interested in commercial non-residential,
Leave out apartments.
you could leave out apartments, convert buildings from non-residential use. That's kind of like hotels converting over to apartments. You might want to leave that out if that's not something we're interested in doing. That's part of the process in choosing how we stand the thing up. Traditional types of housing development you would probably leave in, but I can see Steve is
What about
a question.
the other taxing districts?
The only one that is fire. They would all be.
And they're carved out.
Yep. Fire's carved out. Everything else would go for the loan period or until the loan is complete. So
Probably having a hard time grasping why this isn't more popular.
I think it's a little complicated when you really get into the weeds of it. I think that's the problem. And I think the other issue is I haven't seen the city do it yet because the county has to agree. I've only seen the county do it. So a county can do a project as well and they don't need city approval. They can stand up their own program because they're their own jurisdiction.
A feeling it's a lot like safe routes to school.
Safe route. Getting the project together, I think, would be the hardest part. The performa, all those types of things, getting the approval, the location, all that stuff. Managing the funds is fairly easy. It's actually standing up the program, and the application process, I think, would be the hardest. But I'm guessing that it's the coordination between the cities and the counties that are having the biggest problem.
With our focus on trying to attract diversification of industries into the community with family wage benefited jobs, that really creates an incentive for people in that middle income to look at Prineville. And I think it is well worth our effort to try to put the package together if we can.
I would like us to move forward with it.
Yeah, I gotta agree with that. Yeah, I mean, every politician from the state level down has been talking about affordable housing until they're blue in the face.
And they're putting money, where their mouth is. So here it is.
Surprised it's not more popular.
And so
it's already seated.
right, it is.
So
So with that, I guess we have kind of our council of nod, so we can take that back to the county and let them know that
yeah, it's a great idea.
the city's on board with potentially standing up a program. And if you have any questions or if you have any future need, like I said, you can even ask on their site for a scheduled meeting individually if you want. They will meet you on Zoom and tell you about the program and how it works.
So with that, now you can go talk to the county and tell them that you got the nod from council that we want to entertain this idea.
Yeah, we were looking for general support from council regarding this program. And so there is a lot of resources and moving parts that need to move forward in regards to this. And so we really just wanted to get a sense of where this council was in regards to the conception of this project so that we could start actually moving forward to put some resources involved. The county seems to be a bit lukewarm on the project at the current time, or not the project, but program. So wanted to get a sense of where our council was in regards to your enthusiasm for it before spending any significant resources therein.
Great. Thanks, Josh.
Okay.
You just gonna stay up there?
Yeah, and you guys have council reports first, but
Well, there any reports from the council? All right. The ordinances, we're down to resolutions. Sorry, Josh. Resolution number 1640, authorizing the purchase of real property from Crook County Parks and Recreation District. Josh Smith.
Yes, so no presentation on this one because I gave it 2 weeks ago. This is the Sea Hill Ridenour property that we talked about. The only change that from their last meeting is we did talk to the Crook County's, the board, Parks and Rec board, and they did agree for the 3-year payment. So it was doable without that, but that helps Lori. She encouraged me to do that because that helps her whole process and gives us more use of those funds in each successive year. So that was something we would put into the purchase agreement. So this is a resolution. So this is the time when you would actually have any questions for me, please ask. But this is the actual vote on whether you want to purchase that property from the Parks District.
Guess I have a question, kind of, a little bit.
Yep.
I was definitely in favor of this. Is there any way that if this passed tonight or didn't, whatever it does, if it does pass, could we put out information and show people why this was an offer that was made to us, why we entertain this and how it could benefit that area?
Yeah. What form were you looking?
I
Tried to put a lot of that in the resolution.
I know, but I mean, publicly, get out to the public, promote this, Facebook, whatever we need to do about this property.
Yeah, we can certainly do that. We don't have we're actually getting a better website coming to where I'm hoping we can start doing better at creating our projects pages and getting more information out. Right now, our website is kind of defunct. Should be getting a new one this summer. So we can do better at providing information to the public, and we could certainly publish what this property is used for.
Quite a bit about certain projects in the city. What are they doing?
Mhm.
I think this is one that mitigates a water issue or can help mitigate a water issue, takes on property that isn't really good for anything else. And we can actually make some use of it. And it helps Parks and Rec, which is 100%. For 15 years now, I've always said I want to help the kids. And
Yeah, this puts money back into their SDC fund so they can finish that park, put some lights up in fields and pave parking lots and replace the baseball fields like Steve mentioned last time. So we can certainly do that. We can find out different ways to kind of push that out.
And I'm not saying that as a condition.
Yeah.
I'm just saying I would like to see it promoted.
Okay.
Certainly when we finalize the project, we could work with our Facebook publication and get that out there as a good story.
I just think it's a really good story for the community.
Any other questions from council?
I'll move to
Okay.
approve resolution 1640, authorizing the purchase of real property from Crook County Parks and Rec District.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, passed unanimously.
Outstanding.
We'll move on to item 10, resolution 1641, authorizing the assignment of the purchase agreement. Josh Smith.
So I do have a presentation on this one as soon as they pop it up. I do want to mention that hoping IT can put them on. I do have, this is a property purchase agreement between Polish Homes and Lennar Homes. I should have both developers, representation from both developers online. I can see Mike Morris in there. And they're all Mikes, Mike Morris, Mike Anders, and Mike Loomis might be in there as well. So at some point I will defer to them and let them speak on behalf of their projects. But I wanted to kind of give you an overview of what this is and why we're doing it, or why they're asking for it per se. So original property layout, I think most of you were on council when this all happened. Back in, it's probably 2019, we were actually discussing it. They were finishing up phase 3 and 4 of the Ochoco Point. I shouldn't use that because I can't see it online. Use my mouse. They were finishing up phase 3 and 4 of Ochoco Point. And at that time, we were developing the Combs Flat Road project. We knew this property that we owned, you can see the two city sides where the canal is, was going to get cut off from the primary Barnes Butte area. In the Barnes Butte Rec Area concept plan, we said, hey, this is kind of an area we would probably develop instead of making it part of the recreation area, and kind of left it at that. 2020 came along, and Polish came to us because they were looking at purchasing this Minnesota State property here from the Iron Horse project. And our property lended itself well to continue that whole project up to the Combs Flat Road. So at that time, the agreement was in 2020. That set the price per unfinished lot, which is $13,500, and requires incorporation of the Ocho Point HOA, which is the Polish subdivision over here. And the reason we did that is we knew this might happen, and we wanted to ensure that that development that we're selling to had some level of standard to it. So fast forward, this is the project that was approved after that agreement went through. This is the full expansion of, I did it again. This is the full expansion of what we're calling the Ocho Point expansion property. It's got 9 phases. 5 is already finished. 6 has been developed, and then they're working towards 7. And the reason this is coming up right now is they're asking to buy that and then turn this over to Lennar. So phases 6, 7, 8, and 9 would go to the Lennar purchase, and they would continue the project as you see it laid out. Granted, this is a tentative plan, so some of the lots will slightly shift, but the overall development is the same. Road systems and everything is the same. So when that came to us, our initial response was, well, we don't really want someone else developing. We sold it to Polish for a reason. What are you going to develop? How are you going to develop it? So we worked with Lennar on creating their own CC&Rs and their own HOA, because they don't want to be part of the Ocho Point HOA because it's a much higher standard than they're used to. Lennar can build anything, but for this project and for the price point that they're trying to hit, going back to that Merle project we were just talking about, the price point of these lots will come down a bit from the Polish because the HOA doesn't do as much. All the front yard maintenance and that such will go away. But the design standards we put in place and the HOA will create a similar product to what you see in Ocho Point to kind of carry that forward. That is the idea and the concept. So where we're at today, so this is the plan, what we're going to have. Where we're at today, there's phase 5, there's phase 6 that had been actually constructed. Phase 5 is almost completely built out. And then that is what would be sold to Lennar, the orange. The rest of the project would go to Orange. They'd have their own HOA, their own CC&Rs, and hopefully kind of be a softer transition because of the CC&Rs and HOA that we've created. This is what it looks like today. So the current property map, phase 5 would stay with Ocho Point. That's going to stay there. That'll be part of their development. Not going to change anything. They've already built it out. Phase 6, I put a plus there because it includes all of the orange, not just where you see the roads developed. This is privately owned, does not require city sale. They can build that out. They can sell that. They can do whatever they want with it. Phase 7 through 9, basically the green and part of the orange is what does require city sale. And the reason this is kind of a mutual benefit between the two parties and the city, this portion of Polish could sell to Lennar with no standards whatsoever and just let them build it out and just back out. They don't have to buy the city property. They can just completely walk away. They don't really want to do that. They want to finish the development. So the benefit to the city is our property right now is kind of stranded without phase 6 because all the right-of-ways dead end into their property. So if we just backed away from this and said, no, we're not going to sell Lennar, it has to be polished, and they walk away, we end up with a property that is kind of landlocked. and can't move through without purchasing property from them to finish our roads. On the other side of things, if they don't buy from us, they have a lot of stranded property that is useless to them as well. So it's kind of this mutual standard benefit, and it allows us to kind of front those negotiations with the standards and include phase 6 with the city property in the whole development. It gives us that opportunity, and that's what I'm taking now. I'd rather have the known situation than risk a gamble on saying no and getting something that maybe is inferior in the future. So what we have today, and your packet is massive. It's massive because I didn't even put all the CCNRs in there. I put just the design standards in there that we've negotiated through. You also have all 10 designs of homes in your packet. I just put 4 of them up here. If you've ever been in the polished neighborhood, you can see that this is a very similar architectural design to
Are
that.
these similar to the Stone Ridge phase that Lennar put in recently?
No, that
Okay.
is what we specifically said we didn't want in this neighborhood. So that is what, and Michael Anders can talk to that. So what you saw in Parkview subdivision is a much lower quality, kind of a more of a plain look to those. They're fine homes, they're affordable homes, they're great homes, but they don't have the cosmetic things that you would normally see in like the Ochico Point subdivision. These would. And you can see in your packet, there's several. These lots are smaller than those lots over there. Those lots are much bigger in Parkview. So you can see here, you got some smaller single story ones. There's several single stories in there, and you got several 2-story, you even got some 3-car garage ones. Some of these can be seen over in the Dry Canyon area in Redmond. I think I recognize some of these designs. So in my opinion, I think Lennar's done a good job at meeting our reasonable expectations for making this reassignment, and we should proceed. That said, I will leave it open for questions for council, and then I'll see if the companies want to talk. Any reservations or anything you saw in the packet that concerns you?
Gosh, I don't have a lot of experience with HOAs.
Mm-hmm.
And the makeup of that particular group that makes those decisions for different changes that might take place. Can you give a little background so that who can make sure that those are complied with?
So the developer initially does. So right now, Ochico Point is still under the onerous of Polish Homes. So they still run the HOA. Now that Iron Horse is just about ready to get turned over to the homeowners themselves. Eventually, Ochico Point will get turned over to the homeowners themselves. At that point, I mean, you can only do so much. An HOA is only as good as the people willing to maintain it. It does help keep the project originally built a certain way. After that, Polish Homes, they could vote right after they turn it over, they could vote to disband, and that's the CCNRs are still recorded, but there's no enforcement mechanism. My neighborhood, Northridge, used to have a homeowners association. It doesn't anymore, but the CCNRs are still there. They're technically still enforceable. I think the trees, what was it? Three Pines, that used to be an HOA. It's no longer there. These would be some of the first HOAs that actually get stood up by the citizens, but they're large enough they should be able to manage themselves. And I think this piece here, what Lennar is looking at, would be large enough to stand up on its own.
Just to piggyback on that a little bit, what's important, however, in these CCNRs and HOAs is that the declarant is what's important, and that is the developer, right? And so the declarant generally in all CCNRs, I'll let both companies speak to this, but if they wish, the declarants retain a significant amount of control over the community until a certain level is met, a certain percentage of homes are actually sold. And so what that allows is it allows for all the building of the community to take the effect that was envisioned. Once the HOAs take it over after a 90% occupancy, let's say, then it's up to the citizens to maintain sort of the rules, landscaping, dogs at large, stuff of that nature. but the buildings themselves are already erected. And sort of that, you know, those standards and specifics have already been relatively established. And it's really up to HOAs at that time to monitor the community and continue its character, but the character itself's already been built. So typically, even though we say HOA, those HOAs don't actually come into effect from a control standpoint until the community's pretty much developed.
Correct. And you're seeing that more and more, that developers are building out. You don't see a lot of just individual lots being sold because of that new housing rules. People are afraid of what somebody might build next to them. So you're seeing a lot of these developers completely build out their own subdivisions. And that's where Lennar comes in and just buys the whole thing. So I don't see Mike on, is Mike Morris still in there? There he is. So I was going to invite Mike to talk on the polish side first, just to kind of give his opinion on why polish is moving in this direction, and then we'll hear from Mike Anders from Lennar. Go ahead, Mike. Are you still muted? Maybe not. No?
Nope.
But we can't hear him. Let's try. What's that? Did you?
Need more volume. I'm pretty sure I heard him. Am I the only one that heard that? He said, it says I'm unmuted now.
Oh, that was terrible.
Yeah, let's do a little test. Michael Anders, can you unmute and see if you can?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead and Mike, can you speak?
Yeah, you bet.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
Mayor and council members, thanks for
Excellent.
being heard. Everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, I apologize for, I'm on the road for work, so rest assured I'm not driving though. But Mayor and council members, thanks for letting us be heard. And Josh, I want to thank you for the collaboration and the responsiveness to trying to work through this. But we have a long-standing relationship in working with Polish Homes. We've worked with them in numerous other communities, building in the same community, but also purchasing property from them. And you know, we're anxious and excited to continue to be a part of the community there, and then specifically in Ochoco as well. And so appreciate the collaborativeness with the city to be able to come up with solutions for architectural renderings and our elevations, as well as the exterior look. It's our intent to mimic what's in the Ochoco Point community, both from, you know, colors and landscaping and fencing styles. So our intent is to blend in and not stand out. And regarding some of the HOA questions that I heard, everything that was said is correct. The CCNRs will govern. We do hire a third-party HOA management company that will represent the HOA and field questions from future owners and help us, you know, police and monitor the community. So it represents what the city is looking for the community to look like. I'm happy to take any questions.
He answered all the questions I had.
Okay.
You did too. So,
Sounds like a good fit.
yeah.
So Mike Morris, did you end up with the audio fixed?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, good. Sorry about that. My laptop has just given me some issues, so I jumped onto my phone.
Perfect.
Likewise, similar to Mike Anders. My name is Mike Morse. I'm Senior Land Director for Polish Homes. And Josh, thank you for the presentation. Mayor and councilors, appreciate you hearing Josh's presentation. And again, as I mentioned, what Mike Anders said, we've worked well together, multiple communities, both in Central Oregon as well as in the Portland, Vancouver area. We feel that this is just the right time to hand over the baton and have a Lennar type of home builder finish out the rest of the community. I think the city will see, it will accelerate the number of rooftops in the beautiful Ochoco Point area. And it's mutual, it's a win-win situation for both us, Lennar, as well as the city of Prineville, and we appreciate your consideration.
Go ahead.
So have you entered into a relationship with them in the past? Polish going to Lennar, or is this the first one?
No, we've done multiple projects where we've been the master developer, and they've either joined us in the early stages of a development, or in some cases even the later stages of a development. In this particular case, I would call this more in the later stages.
Any other questions for the developers? So like I said, I have been in neighborhoods up in Vancouver area where they both were developers. They're literally next to each other and you wouldn't know the difference. That was our objective in this, is to try to create that same pattern. The CCNRs and then the agreement that we put together with, we'll essentially rewrite the small portions of the agreement that we already have with Polish. We'll probably do another one for Lennar and kind of put those aspects in there. But at this point, I think we've got reasonable expectations that it will build out. And as Mike said, this will accelerate the development out there. I think Polish mentioned they were selling like one a month when they need to sell 4 a month. So this should positively affect the housing situation in Prineville.
Did you have a question?
No, I was gonna make make a motion
Please do.
if you are ready.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I would move to approve resolution number 1641, a resolution authorizing the assignment of the purchase agreement.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passed unanimously.
And I want to thank Josh for all of his efforts in getting the detail worked out, so this can be a smooth transaction with a good outcome.
Thank you. And thank the Mikes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Sticking around this long for a meeting. All right, so we are down to visitors' appearances and requests. Would anybody in the audience like to speak to us before we adjourn?
Good evening, Mayor, council members. My name is Chris Vanderweer of Central Oregon Processing, the hemp company. I am here today just to let you guys know, as well as the city of Prineville, that our company is fully committed to getting this figured out alongside you guys. I want to thank Josh. He has been essentially our barometer for how well our efforts have been. Going back 2 or 3 years ago, when it first was a complaint, we installed air filters, carbon sequestration. We have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars in remediation efforts, and we are down to continue that. For whatever reason, the complaints, we've tried to track it with weather, humidity. Is it the cold? Is it, I solve a lot of engineering complicated things for our company, and the smell thing has been arduous. But we are here to continue to figure it out. We have over 100 employees who work for our company. Their families and friends live all around us. We take polls from them. It's how I know about this meeting today. We're looking, in the community to see if anyone's talking or social media. And we are locked in to getting this figured out. I just wanted to answer any questions if you guys had any for us, and we'll continue to work with Josh to get this figured out. I think as time goes on, whether it's weather changing or our production increasing, some weeks or months, we feel like we've got it solved, we've got it licked, and then all of a sudden it's back. So there's some training for us, the frequency, we need to swap filters, but we are actively working on it. And if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to take any of them.
Appreciate you being here.
Yeah.
Of course. Thank you. It means a lot to us.
Thanks, Chris.
Anybody else like to speak to us before we adjourn? You two have sat here through the whole meeting.
I'll move to adjourn the meeting.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.
Period.
Yeah.